I've been gone for a little while, so there's been some changes here. Huge nerfs to leveling, massive class changes, and midnight raid schedule revealed. That's right, so we got more class changes that have just hit. New big nerfs to leveling and stuff like. Let's see what Kalani has to say about all the crazy shit going down right now as we prepare for midnight.
Hey folks, this is Kalani. It's been a busy week in World of Warcraft. Leveling requirements were just slashed by up to 83% for some levels, which will make getting up to level 80 so much faster than before. There are some huge class changes, buffs and nerfs on the Midnight Beta, including some big changes for healers. We finally have a release schedule for the start of Midnight, which is going to be very important thanks to the 3 raids we'll have to explore at the start of Season 1, and then there are a few add-ons that you might want to check out.
You guys excited for a 3 raid schedule? I kind of am. I think a 3 raid breakdown is going to be kind of fun. It's going to keep it fresh longer. You know, we're not going to get it all at once. You're going to get it broken down a little bit, and you'll have time to kind of get into it, clear it, and then the next one drops. I think it'll be a nice little refreshing way to go through a raid season.
Having a lot of fun with housing this week. There's a lot to talk about, so let's break it all down in this week's WoW News video. Now before we jump in, be sure to hit on that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. First up this week, there have been some massive nerfs to the amount of experience required to level from 70 to 80 specifically, and when I say massive, I mean it this time. We've seen reductions of up to 83%. This chart from Wowhead shows you exactly how large some of these changes are. You're looking at about an 80% reduction overall, which means leveling from 70 to 80 just became very, very fast indeed, making this the perfect time to get some of your left behind alts up to 80, so you can take them forward into the Midnight expansion. There are also a few new ways to level up super fast in this patch thanks to these nerfs. The new War Within recap story takes about 2 hours to work through and should get you from 70 to 80, and this feature also provides you with some...
This is really good. I'm glad Blizzard's kind of taking... they're giving the story some importance, because when people get into the story, it just makes them more attached to the game overall. The more I don't know, enveloped you are in WoW, and you're not just attached to the Mythic Plus and, you know, getting that eye level up, but you get attached a little bit to the storyline as well, the more likely you are to continue paying that sub and playing the game. So I think Blizzard knows that now, and they're giving these like really cool ways for people to, if they're coming back right now, you catch up and you actually know what the hell's going on in the game, rather than, you know, you just go into midnight and you're like, who's this elf with sexy feet? Like, what's going on here? Is she a bad guy? She's making me horny. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. And it turns out now you know what's going on. This is a much better way to do it than previously, where people just jump in and they skip after the story and they just got to figure it out through YouTube videos or something.
Starter gear to help out at max level. If you have a lot of bonus experience...
Too bad we haven't gotten a good story in a long time. Okay, Kyan goes, you're not wrong. But I feel like Midnight is about to get good, right? The Metsid effect's about to kick in, hopefully. So I feel like Midnight and the Last Titan, we're about to get some really good storytelling. So you got to at least know the baseline of where we came from to understand what's going to happen in Midnight and the War Within. I agree. The stories in the War Within were, okay, a lot of unfinished weird shit going on. We got Hornier running around. We got Stony Boy dwarves running around. They got a lot of weird shit, but I think you got to kind of know some of these storylines to really understand what's about to happen, hopefully, as the story gets good at Midnight and Last Titan.
Experience loaded up on your Legion Remix characters. This will make leveling more alts in Legion Remix lightning fast, so it should take no time at all to get all of your characters leveled up and ready for the Midnight expansion. Now moving on, we have a lot of class changes for the Midnight Beta to go over, and every single class has some updates this week, including healers seeing some pretty large nerfs to their burst healing specifically, so I guess healers will be relying a lot more on consistent healing rather than big bursts to top people off if nothing else changes. First up, we have the Death Knights, with quite a few changes for Unholy. Pestilence has been redesigned to consume 100% of your plagues to deal 150% of the
a lot of big increases to damage. What the hell?
Damage, and you'll gain a charge of Putrefy. Outbreak was replaced with Pestilence. Necromancer's Cunning has been updated. Reanimation now also causes Magus of the Dead to deal extra damage. Harbinger of Doom and Scourging were updated slightly, and all disease eruption effects like Blight Burst and Pestilence are now consumed consolidated into one damage spell, which should reduce the number clutter that you get on screen.
That's
Dark
good.
Transformation no longer deals damage. Raise Abomination Disease Cloud no longer deals damage. Soul Reaper was buffed by 100%. Ghoul's Sweeping Claws and Claw damage were buffed by 50%.
You got to remember, I don't know Unholy's rotation perfectly or anything, but a lot of these changes, sometimes you might see like a crazy bonus here of 100%, 25%, whatever this shit is. Sometimes they're making an irrelevant ability relevant. So sometimes it's not necessarily that they're buffing the shit out of Unholy, it's that they're buffing the shit out of a really shitty ability that's not currently relevant.
50%, Rapid Variant saw a 100% damage boost, and then Death Coil, Epidemic, and Graveyard damage are all up 25%. So a lot of buffs for Unholy this week. Demon Hunters have some interesting changes this week. Devourer didn't see any more nerfs, so you can rest easy for now if you're planning on playing the shiny new spec on the block, but they did get a lot of new and updated icons, which look very cool indeed, and fit the Cosmic Void vibe much better than the previous.
I gotta say, like, what the hell are these guys called again? These Void Demon Hunters. Their animations are going to be some of the best in the game. They look really, really cool.
Ones, many of which were probably placeholder. For Havoc, Blind Fury...
You should have just called them Void Demon Hunters. Why we got to call them Devour? What the hell?
Generate less fury. Furious Gaze now grants 8% haste for 8 seconds, down from 10% haste for 10 seconds. A Fire Inside now reduces the cooldown of Immolation Aura instead of giving you a chance to refund a charge. And then Netherwalk has actually been completely removed, so Havoc won't have an immunity at all anymore when these changes go live in the midnight pre-patch.
No more cheat death Andes for you guys. Oh no.
Moving on, we come to the Druids, and Balance has a bunch of changes this week. Solar and Lunar Eclipse will have a much shorter GCD, all spell damage was reduced by 17%, but this will be offset by quite a few other buffs, like an 8% increase to both Star Surge and Starfall damage. Wild Mushroom damage is up 20%, Meteorites damage is up 150%, Denizen of the Dream damage is increased by 20%, Sunfire and Moonfire damage up 35%, and Shooting Stars damage saw a 25% buff. Celestial Fire was nerfed down to an 8% increase, Solar Bolt damage was nerfed by 25%, a lot of astral power generation has been reduced, so you'll get less astral power from Nature's Balance and Soul of the Forest, and then a few other talents have been nerfed. Star-Lord can now no longer be force cancelled, and some talents were shifted around in the talent tree. For Feral, Panther's Guile has been redesigned to give Shredder...
Okay, whoever plays that class, look at that shit. I don't know what the hell any of that meant. What the hell? That was like a freaking page and a half of changes.
Moonfire, a chance to generate full combo points. Shred damage was nerfed by 8%. Swipe damage is down 8%. Moonfire with Lunar Inspiration was increased by 10%. Sudden Ambush also increases the damage dealt by affected attacks by 50%. And Focused Frenzy now also increases Feral Frenzy damage by 40%. Guardian has a quick 30% buff to their melee damage, and then Restoration will see a 5% nerf to all of their healing. Everbloom splashes 10% of Life Bloom down from 15%, Life Treading was reduced down to 25% from 30%, and Wild Synthesis was reduced to a 30% bonus from 35%.
I can tell what Blizzard's doing with tanking and healing is they want healers to focus on healing. I feel like they're reducing tanks' abilities to kind of heal themselves a little bit. And at the same time, because they're taking away like interrupts and shit from healers, they want healers to strictly focus on healing. They don't want tons of major burst damage, and they just want healers to heal. Like they just want healers to be able to heal. That's what you focus on. And tanks shouldn't have to worry as much about it. Just let the healer heal. And I feel like that's the direction they're going with it. And I don't think that's a bad direction. I think that might be the right way to do things.
Evokers are up next, and Augmentation is under the magnifying glass once more. Personal and pet damage of all spells is being reduced by 15%, so that's a hefty across-the-board nerf. Damn. Duplicate no longer increases Ebonmite's self-damage increase by 100%. Duplicate's 100% increase to Ebonmite no longer snapshots, and their 2-set bonus was also cut in half.
Are they ever going to be good again? I mean, Augmentation, I don't know. Did Blizzard make a mistake with Augmentation? Should they just given these guys a tanking class and called it a day? Who knows if these guys are going to be viable? I haven't seen it on testing, whether or not they're actually good or not, but I just feel Augmentation's always going to be in the gutter. Because Blizzard doesn't want to make them good because then they become required as the part of the meta. I saw the buffs. I'm tempted to try them. Okay, we'll see. We'll see. I I mean, there's some buffs here. We'll see how they end up balancing out.
I imagine the dev team really wants to make sure that augmentation doesn't end up in the position that it was in when it was first introduced, being so powerful that it was considered required for all group content. But I guess we'll see if they can thread that needle here and still make augmentation fun and worth taking without it being super overpowered. Devastation has just one change this week. Animosity's effect now diminishes by 25% per empower spell cast during Dragon Rage. And then for Preservation, Life Force Mender has been redesigned. Marithra's Blessing was nerfed down to 1%, it heals one less target, and it's now considered a green spell and does not trigger compression. Temporal Anomaly Absorption now falls off more sharply when healing more than 6 targets. Living Flame Healing was buffed by 28%, Verdant Embrace Healing is up 15%, and then Dream Simulacrum was nerfed down to a 30% healing increase for Verdant Embrace. Moving on to the Hunters, Beast Mastery has quite a few nerfs, mainly focused into the Pack Leader hero talent tree. Several damage bonuses were removed from Wyvern's Cry. Wyvern's Cry no longer grants initial bonus stacks, and it can...
My mod's cat just deleted a message of somebody saying they're going to try augment. Cats don't even like Augmentation Evoker. That's crazy. That's crazy. Pack Leader, nice. A Beast Mastery I've heard is might be looking good for this expansion for a Midnight.
Only stacked to 10. Pack Mentality was also nerfed by 50%, and on top of all of that, Beast Mastery also saw a 15% nerf to Kill Command damage, so they really wanted to reel in some of that extra damage from Kill Command when running Pack Leader. Then we come to the mages. For Arcane, Mana Adept was buffed up to 2% of your max mana. Overpowered Missiles has been updated to cause Arcane Missiles to grant max stacks of Arcane Salvo. Charged Missiles damage bonus was reduced to 40%, and then Arcane Blast, Arcane Pulse, Arcane Surge, Arcane Orb, and...
Alright, is that Arcane Is that a new animation? That thing looks really cool. I don't feel like I've seen that in the game. Maybe I just haven't paid attention. That's a really cool animation, though.
Arcane Missile damage...
I personally think, cool animation can make or break a class. For real, one of the best things about WoW after 20 years of this game is their animations, whether it be spell or melee hits or anything, they just feel the best. They're the least clunky. They just hit shit right. It feels right. It's smooth. It's just the way things move. I can't explain it, but I go into other MMOs sometimes, even these super high fidelity 5K ultra boosted, you need a 180 graphics card to run them, but they just look clunky. Something about the animation don't look right. The animations in WoW have always been good, so new updates to them, I always like them.
Saw a 20% buff. Arcane Barrage damage is also up 40%.
The Frost
Fire Mage,
yes.
Heat Shimmer has returned. Deep Impact has been buffed. Scald was updated to provide a lot of damage bonuses. Burnout was buffed up to 75%. Meteor damage has been increased by 30%. Meteor Ground Effect duration was cut in half, but should deal the same amount of damage over its duration. Fireball cast time was reduced by half a second, which is going to be pretty impactful, and then Kindling is now a 1-point talent. Scorch has also returned, making Fire one of the most mobile caster specs once again,
nice,
and then quite a few talents have been shifted around or removed. And then for Frost, there are quite a few new talents, including one that causes enemies with freezing stacks to explode upon death, so those stacks should never be wasted damage. Glacial Spike can shatter freezing instead of stacking it up. There are some extra cooldown reduction options for Freezing Orb. Fingers of Frost now has 2 charges baseline, and quite a few other talents and effects have been adjusted slightly. Glacial Assault damage was increased by 200%, Shatter damage is up 25%, Blizzard damage did see a 25% nerf, Frostbolt cast time was reduced slightly, and there have been some updates to the Season 1 set bonuses.
That's a lot of shit.
Up next, we have the Monks. Brewmaster's Apex talents have been updated. Invoke Nazao was changed to Stomp when you cast Blackout Kick. Exploding Keg now also resets the cooldown on Keg Smash. Empty the Cellar's damage was increased by 100%, and it now reduces brew cooldowns by 3 seconds per additional keg. Staggering Strike's Stagger Clear was reduced by 40%, and their melee damage will be buffed by 50%. For Mistweaver, Invigorating Mist's healing was buffed up by 100%.
I think Monks deserve some attention. I feel like they've gone through some troubling times. I think they deserve some good shit this expansion.
Now decreases the cast time of Enveloping Mists by 30%, down from 60%.
Play
Emperor's Favor was cut down to a 20% bonus from 150%, which is kind of insane. Silent Sanctuary no longer triggers while at full health. Strength of the Black Ox no longer scales based on the monk's health, and Unison has been removed. And then Windwalker does have a few nerfs this week. Slicing Wind's damage is down 50%. Hurricane's...
Brad asks a great question that I get asked all the time on YouTube. Why am I watching a guy who's watching a guy read patch notes that I can read? This is an infinite question that can be asked multiple times, multiple different ways. Here's the thing. I'm a degenerate. You're a degenerate. And the person who's watching you, watching me, watching him is a degenerate. That's the truth. So just be the degen you are and watch this fucking garbage content. Thank you, Brad.
Bonus was cut in half, and Celestial Conduit healing was reduced by a whopping 80%. Then we come to the Paladins. For Holy
For the record, Kalani's content's great. It's my content that's garbage.
Veneration now triggers from Judgment and grants an Absorb Shield for 15% of damage done, down from 30%. Judgment's cooldown was reduced by 22%, which is a bit of an odd number. Holy Shock's cooldown was reduced to 6 seconds, and then Beacon of Light now transfers 10% of healing done, down from 20%, so that's definitely going to sting a bit. Protection saw a 100% buff for their melee damage, and then Retribution's Apex talents no longer causes Righteous Cause or Art of War when Avenging Wrath is cast. Judge, Jury, and Executioner was nerfed to only affect one Holy Power spender, and Divine Resonance grants the additional Holy Power instantly. The Priests are up next, and Discipline has a lot of updates this week. The bottom section of the talent tree has been shifted around quite a bit. Mindbender has been redesigned to be a passive proc. There are a couple of new talents to explore. Greater Smite was nerfed down to a 15% bonus per talent point and 20% per stack. Plea is now learned at level 80 instead of being a talent. Ultimate Radiance was redesigned. Void Shield chance to trigger was reduced. The damage reflection was buffed, but it no longer scales with damage modifiers. Flash Heal was buffed by 30%. Smite damage was increased by 40%. Evangelism now casts Radiance at 150% effectiveness, down from 200%. Occultist was nerfed down to 15%. Purge the Wicked was knocked down to 10%. Power Word Radiance Healing was nerfed by 15%. Mindbender damage was doubled, and Shadow Fiend now has a 40% chance to trigger instead of being based on the target's current health. So a lot is changing for Discipline this week. For Holy, Cosmic Wave now increases the healing of Cosmic Ripple by 15%, down from 60%. So that's a pretty hefty nerf. Flash Heal saw a 30% buff. Prayer of Healing is up 15%, but then Prayer of Mending Healing was nerfed by 25%.
Again, I said Blizzard's philosophy, you can kind of see what they're going for with the way they're treating healers and the way they're treating tanks. Like, tanking healing is being nerfed a little bit. Regular healers healing is being buffed a lot. I think they just want healers to heal. And I think that's a good thing, right? That's what we want out of that role. You want a healer. Somebody who is selected to play a healer. If they're not my wife who has been forced to do so because I'm a tank and I want her to heal me, they probably want to heal. Like, that's why they selected being a healer. So why not just let them heal, right? You've downed their amount of responsibility they have now in a group or raid. You've taken away their ability to interrupt and do other shit. They had to dispel and do all this other crap. Just heal. Just heal. And I think that's the right direction.
Will catch a blanket 5% nerf to all of their healing done. And then for Shadow, quite a few talents have been redesigned, and a lot of insanity generation has been reduced, like Shadow Fiends, Mindbender, and Void Wraith generating less insanity per attack, and Void Tendrils and Void Lashes generating 5 insanity over their duration, down from 15. Shadow Fiend has a 40% chance to trigger, just like Disc. Tormented Spirit's chance to trigger was reduced by 40%. Ideal of Yogg-Saron only requires 20 stacks to summon, down from 25. Shadow Word Madness damage was nerfed by 30%. Shadowy Apparition damage is down 30%, and Mindbender damage was buffed by 100%.
Like I said, I wonder why interrupting went from a DPS task to a healer task. It's because, look, most DPS are brain dead fucking zombies. Let's be honest. They're probably bots, I don't know, but most DPS, they, when you give them a coloring book and some crayons, they put the crayons in their nose and they try to color with the book on the fucking box. I don't know. Like, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're just parsing. They're not paying attention to shit. And most healers are actually kind of big, brave people. Like, they've taken on extra responsibility. And then most tanks are big dick giga chads. You're looking at one right now. So that's like the typical, you want to parse out what each role is in real life. That's what it is. So when you give the option to healers or to DPS to interrupt, the healers who tend to be smarter people are going to just do it. Because they already know the people with the fucking crayons in their nose and they're playing like this. They don't know what the fuck they're doing, just parsing. They're not going to do it. Okay, so that's why it's become a healer responsibility. So Blizzard was like, you know what? We're just going to take the responsibility away from the healers, and if the DPS don't do it, everyone's going to die. And that's it. And I think that was the right direction to go.
Moving on to the rogues, Assassination will see a 16% reduction to all damage and abilities, a 20% nerf to their auto-attack damage, and Fatal Concoction was buffed up to 20 and 40%, up from 15 and 30%. For Outlaw, instant poison damage was increased by 50%, Blade Rush damage to the primary target was buffed by 15%, Scoundrel Strike damage is up 15%, Main Gosh damage saw a huge 150% damage boost, but they'll also see a 16% damage nerf across the board. And then we come to Subtlety. There's a new talent called Umbral Edge that increases the damage of your shadow clones and causes your...
That's a really cool looking mob. That looks like the Godzilla from the 90s Godzilla movie. I think I said this before. I got to find an image of that movie. I forgot what year. Maybe it was like the year 2000 or something. You guys remember that Godzilla movie that came out? Where it's like a completely different rendition. That's what it looks like. I got to find it, man.
Edge that increases the damage of your shadow clones and causes your stuns to create shadow clones that deal damage to your target. Black powder damage was reduced by 9.5%, secret technique was buffed by 8.5%, improved secret technique damage bonus was increased up to 15%, and replicating shadows damage bonus for shadow clones was reduced slightly. So it's kind of all over the place for Subtlety right now. The Shamans are up next, and they actually have quite a few changes this week. Earth Elemental has been changed and Primordial Bond has been redesigned. So Earth Elemental no longer increases your max health baseline, that's now tied into Primordial Bond, and Primordial Bond removes the taunt effect from your Earth Elemental. So I guess you'll have to choose between having it being able to taunt to tank for you and your group, or max health increases for the defensive benefits. Thankfully, the Earth Elemental tooltip has also been updated to clarify its taunt behavior. For Elemental specifically, Molten Wrath was nerfed slightly, Echo Chamber was nerfed, Primal Storm Elemental Storm Fury now deals its full damage over 4 seconds, down from 8, Fire Elemental's Fire Blast damage was increased by...
There it is, yeah, that's what 1998 Godzilla, which was really just like they just wanted to have, you know, they wanted to kind of piggyback off the success of Jurassic Park. And so they made a T-Rex looking Godzilla that wanders around the city. That's what it reminded me of. Alright, I digress, I'm getting into my childhood movies.
500%. Primal Fire Elemental's Immolate damage was buffed by 500% as well, and its Meteor damage saw a 300% increase. Storm Elemental Wind Gust damage and Cold Lightning damage is up 100%, and Primal Storm Elemental Storm Fury damage is up 100% too. So some huge buffs to elementals almost across the board. Power of the Maelstrom now has a 15% chance to occur, down from 40%, and it should be more consistent. For Restoration, Coalescing Water has been redesigned to give Riptide an extra boost. Chain Heal saw a 15% buff and a 10% mana cost reduction. Healing Wave was buffed by 15%. Whispering Waves saw a small nerf, and all of their healing was reduced by 5%. So some targeted buffs offset by some broader nerfs. Then we come to the Warlocks. For Affliction, there's a new talent that buffs up your Dark Glare by giving it shiny new armor. Fatal Echoes was buffed up to a 10% chance to reapply itself, and Call the Weak was updated as...
By the way, he just went through healing for Shamans, I mean. I think Resto Shaman's going to be like part of the meta. They're like the only healer that still has an interrupt, so they might just default to the meta. We'll see.
A small nerf, and all buffs was buffed up to a 10% chance to reapply itself, and Call the Weak was updated as well. Summon Dark Glare has been updated, most notably the damage bonus from your dots was cut down to 10% from 45% per dot, but its baseline damage was increased by 80%, so more of its damage and power will be baseline with less emphasis on needing all of your dots active. Unstable Affliction was nerfed again, this time by 25%, Agony saw a 40% damage nerf, and Malevolent Visionary was removed. For Demonology, there's a new talent that increases the damage of your demons for each demon you control. To Hell and Back gives you another way to summon Imp Gang bosses with an extra buff. Doom damage is increased by 50%. Doom Guard damage was buffed up by 85%. Hand of Gul'dan saw a 20% buff. Fell Guard damage is up 60%. Grimoire Fell Ravager and Imp Lord damage was increased by 120%. And then Evil Eye and Eye of Gul'dan were both removed. And then for Destruction, the talent tree has shifted around quite a bit, and a few talents talents have been removed, with some new talents to take their place, though many of them don't seem all too exciting. Dimensional Rift is now going to be a passive, so Chaos Bolt and Shadowburn have a 10% chance to open your damaging portals. Ruin has been redesigned to increase the crit strike chance of your destruction spells, and then Avatar of Destruction was redesigned to cause Soulfire to summon an Overfiend, and Dimensional Rift has a chance to summon an Overfiend as well. Curiously, Chaos Bolt is back in the Destruction talent tree instead of being learned baseline, and its damage is being reduced by 35%. Conflagrate also saw a 35% nerf, Incinerate damage is down 25%, Lake of Fire was nerfed by 50%, and Soulfire's cast time was reduced slightly. And then last but not least, we come to the Warriors.
I'm not worried. Warlock will have one class that's super viable, or one spec that's super viable. They always do.
Warrior class talent tree has been moved around a bit. There's a new stance mastery talent that gives each stance some extra effects. Javelineer has been redesigned. Thunderclap damage was buffed by 100%. Rend initial damage is up 60%. Second wind healing while you were below 35% health was increased by 100%. And then Last Stand has been removed. For arms specifically, Master of Warfare has been updated to trigger from all single target abilities instead of just overpower. They'll see a 20% buff across the board, a 20% nerf for Thunderclap damage, and a couple of talents have been removed. For Fury, their Apex talents were redesigned, but they still provide a stacking strength buff and various bonuses to Rampage, and then Thunderclap damage was reduced by 60%. And then for Protection, Last Stand is a new talent that causes Shield Wall to increase your max health, so only Protection will get Last Stand now, and it's tied into Shield Wall specifically. They'll see a 100% buff to auto attack damage, as well as 100% buffs to Shield Slam, Revenge, Devastator, Devastate, Phalanx, Shield Charge, and Tough as Nails damage, so all of those abilities were doubled, which is kinda crazy. Devastating Focus was buffed.
Prot Warrior finished the War Within as like one of the best tanks. Not the best tank. Again, this shit all buffed. What the hell?
Up to a 20% bonus, and I can do this all day was removed, so I guess Prot Warriors actually can't do this all day, but we'll see how they fare when all of these updates go live. In other Midnight news, we finally have a release schedule for Season 1 of the new expansion, which includes when each raid is going to release. Midnight is going to be a bit different for Season 1. Instead of us having just one raid to plunder for shiny new loot, we're actually going to start off the expansion with 3. We'll have the Void Spire, the Dream Rift, and the March on Quel'Danas, but they won't all release at the same time. The expansion launches on March 2nd, and Season 1 will start up on March 17th, so we'll have 2 weeks for the start of the expansion, and I guess a little bit more if you have early access, before the first season starts up. In that first week of Season 1, we'll have the Void Spire raid on Normal and Heroic, with the first wing of LFR. We'll also have the Raid Finder, Normal, and Heroic difficulties of the Dream Rift raid, and that's only going to have one boss, so that should be super quick to clear through. We'll also see Season 1 dungeons on Heroic and Mythic difficulties, as well as PvP Season 1 and Bountiful Delves.
Nice.
A week later, on March 24th, we'll get the Mythic difficulties of the Void Spire and the Dream Rift, so all of the Mythic Raiders will have a week to get ready for those releases, and we'll see the Raid Finder Wing 2 and Story Mode for the Void Spire. This is also when Mythic Plus opens its doors. Beginning the week of March 31st, the March on Quel'Danas will become available on Normal, Heroic, and Mythic difficulties, and this raid is supposed to be quite a bit harder when compared to the other two, so you'll need to gear up your characters to prepare for those 2 extra bosses. We'll also get the last wing of LFR for the Void Spire in this week too. And then on April 7th, the Story Mode and Raid Finder Mode will open up for the March on Quel'Danas, so you can get any quests done and see how the fights progress. I'm pretty happy with this release schedule overall. I know quite a lot of big raid guilds were worried that the third raid wouldn't become available until a month or more after the season starts, which would have dragged everything out quite a bit. But going from Normal and Heroic in the first week to Mythic in the second week, and then the third raid in the third week with all the difficulties available, that's a pretty good schedule in my opinion, and should be a lot of fun to progress through. The last boss of the Void Spire and the last boss of the March on Quel'Danas raids also haven't been tested on the PTR, so I am very much looking forward to seeing how those encounters work. But what do you think of this expansion having multiple raids? Do smaller raids with multiple storylines feel better or worse to you? Let me know what you think in the comments section below. And then to round out...
Honestly, I can't say until we go through it right now, but I feel like it's going to be better because it's going to give us more to do for longer. I don't know, I feel like pacing it out is going to make things feel less rushed, and it'll give us, like I said, more content to do over time.
This video, patch 11.27 went live this week, which included our first venture into the housing system. Not everything is available right away, and you will need to have Midnight pre-ordered to do everything in this patch, but something that everyone can do is start collecting decor, and I've got 2 very useful add-on recommendations for you to make collecting decor much easier.
I was going to say
the
same
decor
one.
Vendor add-on shows you a list of all decor vendors and their locations, so if you want to absolutely load up on decor quickly and you have plenty of gold to spend, you can jump around the world buying up everything on offer. If you have a coordinates add-on like TomTom installed, you can also place waypoints to make tracking down each vendor even easier. And then the Homebound add-on shows you which achievements and quests you can complete right now.
Yeah, the Homebound one has been one everyone's been saying for a while. Definitely a good one for collectors.
Now for special decor rewards. Working your way through these should keep you quite busy until Midnight launches and provide you with some interesting decor options to spice up your WoW homes.
Yep.
Now there is one other add-on I would recommend. It's not strictly housing only, but the Plumber add-on has been adding a whole bunch of quality of life features for a while now. I'm sure there are some other features squeezed in here that I haven't fully explored, but something really cool is that Plumber gives you an option to duplicate any decor you've already placed down. So you can very quickly plop down 20 chests or benches or chairs or just whatever you want really. Unfortunately, it doesn't copy any adjustments like scale, rotation or placement that I could see, but it's still a much faster way to pull out a lot of one specific decor item at a time.
Oh, okay.
But that's all of the updates we have for this week, so that's it for this week's WoW news video. What do you think of housing from what you've played so far, and what are you focusing on as we lead into the Midnight expansion? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to all of our members here on YouTube. You can see the names floating by on screen. If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can find links in the description or click the join button just below the video. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful in any way, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you're always kept up to date. Thanks for watching, folks. Good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.
Yeah, nice video. A lot of crazy class change. Some of them had so many. What was it? Frost Mage, the other Druid class, crazy amount of changes. Overall, Blizzard going for a healer's heal style. I think that's the right way to do it. Housing's been a pretty good add to the game so far, and I like the raid schedule. I think it's a good one for us. I think we'll enjoy the way the raid schedule is laid out so far. Nice video overall from Koane.